Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel, and it's the video we've all been waiting for since, I guess, about the start of September when the NRL final started and NRL SuperCoach finished, and that is the team picker for 2025 is now available. So it is only available to those who are subscribed to SuperCoach Plus, which I'm sure there's definitely a few of us on the channel. I did see that they were saying you could buy it, but honestly, I think if you can get access to videos like this one, a few of the others, I'm sure there's lots of people doing videos. You can probably put together your own sort of team on pen and paper, spreadsheet, whatever, for free, and just wait till it's about Australia Day. Normally, it's only a month or so until the full game opens, unless of course you've got $30 to throw away, in which case fill your boots. But yeah, we'll have a look. I haven't really looked too closely into prices, things like that. Obviously you hear bits and pieces around the traps. So first off, 11.8 mil. I think that's slightly up on last year, but I'm pretty sure that number does generally reflect the actual NRL salary cap. The first difference, obviously, we've got 26 to select. If I can scroll down, it's not letting me. There we go. We now have the new flex position. So for those that aren't playing the Big Bash SuperCoach and not sure how this works, essentially it's just going to act as an extra player that can play. So you'll pick 18 players on field as opposed to 17, but only the top 17 will count. So there is a couple of ways you could try and use it, and I think as we put together the team, I'll talk about some of those. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. You've got 2 hookers, one of which starts, one on the bench, 4 front rowers, 6 second rowers, so that's second row and lock forward. Halfbacks 2, 5/8 2, so they are separate. If you played fantasy NRL before, halves are lumped together. Wings and centres, you have 7 in total. Fullbacks 2, and then 1 flex. So I guess just to fulfill my promise, the first player I'm going to pick, I'm not sure where he's available. He is available in both the front row and the second row. But Big Tino for Malawi, mostly so I can practice saying his last name. But as you can see, only played 2 games last year, averaging 47. So pretty sure the second one was injury affected. I could go back and have a look, but this video is going to be long enough as it is, going through some of the prices. But for his elite front row status, dual position, flexibility, which he's still got, which is nice. I think he is going to be the first sort of front rower. If we look at the others, you've got the big guns, Fanua Blake, Payne Haas, Mitch Barnett has dual position still, which is great. Joe Tarpany, Terrell May, I can imagine is going to be pretty popular, given he should be the man there at the Tigers almost, particularly with Stefano gone to the Storm. Speaking of which, Stefano's at about the same price, so if you like him, front rowers seem to lift another level when they go to the Storm, but he isn't cheap to start with, so probably not for me. And we go on from there. So I guess some people might say RCG could take away a bit from Tino. If anything, it probably adds to Tino's upside, because RCG can, help knock down the wall, and then Tino can hopefully barge through, get a bit of meat from time to time. You love to see it. So generally, I guess as well, when I'm putting my teams together, what I like to do is usually start with 1 premium on each line. It's not to say this is the correct way to do it. This is for me. So at hooker, so you've got Harry Grant, I think is the obvious choice, given he is the highest averaging. You can see Damien Cook and Jacob Little do sort of cannibalise each other, both being at the Dragons. I know a few people will be keen on Max Plath, but he may end up in my second row. Just given the dual position will be handy as well. Appy Coruscant, be interesting to see how he goes with Jerome Luai coming in. Reece Robson, McInnes and Watson, probably, a couple of second rowers or lock forwards, I should say, that, can fill in at 9. Reid Marnie got burnt by him last year. Marshall King, obviously had an injury affected season, but, he's definitely one that's always on the radar. So just having a look through it, those sort of prices, I'm pretty keen on getting Marshall King in to start. And we'll see how we go for budget. Harry Grant would be nice, but obviously not a lot of cheapies at the moment either, which might impact our choices. So second row. So this is, I guess, the next sort of interesting one. You've got sort of the top 4 there are probably the ones most people will look to target. Angus Crichton, Dave Fifita, Isaiah Yeo, Eli Katoa. If you're looking for upside, probably Fifita. Katoa, if you're worried about origin coverage, offers also the upside. If you're just looking for pure base, Isaiah Yeo. And if you're looking for that blend, I think Angus Crichton, he does have a bit more upside, does have a bit more floor than particularly Fifita. So it's basically just pick your poison. After that, the next row are also good. Hudson Young, Brett Nickera, Homole Olakwatu, Jermaine Hopgood. So I guess, just given he's a bit cheaper, I'm going to just slot Hopgood in there for the time being. But definitely keen for, almost any of those top 10, top 9, maybe not so much Jaden Sewer. I'd be keen on having in the team. Halfbacks, I think this year it's pretty obvious. Halfback 1, Nathan Cleary. Nico Hines should be a bit fitter, but I guess the issue with him is it looks like he's switching to 6 and Trindle's going to 7. So I think they want Trindle to do more of the organising. Could be a good thing for Hines, a bit more free running, but we'll see. Nice to see Dylan Brown's got dual position, even though Mitchell Moses should be back. We'll go a bit deeper in a minute. At 5'8", so Jaden Campbell, the most expensive 5'8", that's very interesting. But I guess look at his score from last season, makes sense. I guess, based on the pricing, Ben Hunt locked in at 5'8" there at the Bronx. Cam Munster does offer a lot of value, but the intriguing one possibly is Jerome Luai. Blaze Tulungi available at centre wing, which is nice. But let's just go Cam for now. We haven't got Harry Grant, so getting a piece of the Melbourne attack is a nice thing. Centre wing, and so I guess this year in particular with the flex, I think one of the benefits will be in the centre wing. You can opt for those slightly, higher upside players. So in the past, I've been a bit off, say, a Dom Young, just because the floor is a bit lower than, Holmes, Lomax, Kiraz, for example. But we do know with Dom Young that his upside is scary good. So having the flex means you can actually have Dom Young in, and if he flops, well, you've got 17 other players to catch you. So, not to say I'm going to put him in first. I am going to stick to my guy, Jacob Kiraz. Just love what he's about. Has that wing spot essentially locked up at the Dogs. Might talk about the other one through the course of this video. So, last position, fullback. And so, I guess with the flex, one thing people are suggesting is, we always try and fit 2 out of these 5, 6, 7. You might want to throw in a couple of these other guys, but definitely the top 7 are always very popular. Fitting 2 of them into your squad is tricky. Which 2 do you pick? But with the flex, you can, in theory, now have 3 fullbacks. So I don't know if it's something we can pull off from the start, but it might be worth a look. Actually, we'll do 2 because there's an obvious cheapie coming up. So I guess just looking at the prices, The two I'm interested in, first one is actually Scott Drinkwater. I think there might be a little bit of extra value this year, given he might get the goal kicking. It'll probably come down to him or Jake Clifford, I think, unless I'm missing someone there at the Cowboys. But with Val Holmes gone, that those sort of extra points are available. So if Drinky gets the goal kicking, he's on the par then with Kalen Ponga, Latrell Mitchell in that sense. The second pick, I guess, looking at upside, I'm going to go Tom Trbojevic. He's a bit more expensive than the others. This might become Kalen Ponga if we need to find another near 100 grand. But, I do like Tom Trbojevic. Higher ceiling in the game. And again, with the flex position, we can, even more than ever, look to these high upside players. But in saying that, his floor is quite good normally too. So, I can understand people going to Desco, Latrell, Ponga, even Dylan Edwards, Reece Walsh. Be interesting to see how he goes under match. But, I think any of those top seven, it's just pick and choose. It might sort of depend on origin as well. So that would be more of an argument for Tedesco over some of the others. But, I think Drinkwater as well is probably at the end of that list in terms of origin, which is another reason why I'm happy to lock him in first up. And so as we said, with the flex, you can opt for, any position. You can see they're all listed out here: fullback, halfback, centre wing, etc., etc. But I guess we're going to go to probably one of the most hyped cheapies going into the season. I should have just searched for it. Would have been quicker, especially because I don't really know his price. Yeah, I'm going to have to search. But Iongi from Parramatta, sounds like he's going to get first crack at fullback. So essentially, pretty generous cash cow. And as I said, we've still got two gun fullbacks and a cash cow there. So I think that's the right combination. It will be tempting to go three gun fullbacks from the get-go, get those points, but cash generation is also important. In terms of cheapies, haven't heard too much yet. It is quite early in the season. However, one of the players that has sort of popped up on my radar is this Robert Toya. So there was a lot of conversation about who will play in the centres. A lot of people saying Smith and Nwanga Tawasi. I'm not sure how to say that. I'll have to practice. Would be in the front, but I'm pretty sure there was a quote from Trent Robinson who actually had Toya ahead of Mark, let's say. And I guess maybe with some conjecture around the 5/8 position at the Roosters, he might be required to fill in there potentially as well. So we'll have Toya in as a cheapie. Cool. So I guess from there, probably the sorts of places that we'll look to fill are the other sort of cheapie spots. So basically what's going to become our bench. So probably for my second halfback, I am leaning towards Sandon Smith. There is a bit of a cloud. He's got a bit of a court case coming up. But with Sam Walker still on the ACL, Luke Keary retired, there is a spot in the halves. They've said probably Chad Townsend will take over the 7 from Walker, so it could potentially be Smith to lock in terms of the 6. So if he does start, I think he's a pretty easy halfback option to lock in. At 5/8, I need to get out the Roosters. It's not all about them. I don't know how cheap he's going to be, but a player I am keen on is Luke Metcalf from the Warriors. Just been a bit unlucky with injuries, but has proven when he can get on the field that he can score well. So happy to put Metcalf in. Adam Dewey's at about the same price too. Probably will play in the centres, you'd imagine, with Lockie Galvin and Luai getting first crack in the halves. So probably leaning towards Metcalf as long as he's fit to start the season. Um, I guess another discounted centre option that I think a lot of people will start with is Campbell Graham. Obviously missed all of last year, but he has been a premium option in the past. Um, so with Benny there now as well, running the show, I think there's a few South assets that are very interesting. Speaking of which, I'm just sort of going with train of thought at the moment. No real strategy of this, but I guess another popular cheapie. I think he's about 260. Josh Schuster. So another one that they think Wayne Bennett can do a bit of coach whispering into and get the best out of him. So obviously, if he's in the squad, you would have him. Um, Probably another one, a little bit more expensive. I think I scrolled past him just before. Fini Fuiaki moving to the Dolphins. You'd imagine he'd find his way into a starting spot there. They have been playing with Aitken and Lemuelu. Aitken's moved to either Souths. I think it's Souths, yeah, followed Wayne Bennett. So there is a spot open there. They've plugged in the likes of Felice Kafusi and stuff in the past. You'd imagine they'd be more suited to be middle forwards, particularly when you've got a guy with this sort of talent. So at that mid price, you don't mind him moving in there. Um, yeah, so after that, I don't know, what do we got? 4 mil. So um, maybe we just plug in some bottom dollar cheapies to start with and we'll work it from there. Um, so Cody Ramsey, I did see there was a news article about him. I don't know if he's quite up and about to go yet, but if he is and can jag a spot on the wing, he would be a great value, or even take the fullback spot. Although Gutho has moved there, so he'd probably get first crack at it. Um, Robert Darby might be in the running for that centre spot opened up by Val Holmes leaving, so we'll plug him in. Um, Not seeing too much. I guess Jesse McLean, if he can get a start. His brother Casey, where's he at? Gee, he must have played a few more games. I didn't realise. Oh, he played 7 games. So I can never. I think Jesse McLean is the one they reckon will be slightly better, but they're both pretty good. So we'll plug him in. Jackson Purdue went all right last year when he got a run. Same with Tommy Chester, Joe Tungo. So I guess if Billy Smith does get that centre spot at 317, he offers good value given we haven't got much else, and we'll probably try to fit one more premium in depending on how we go. Second rowers, see if we've got any that are a chance of getting a start. Mason Teague potentially, obviously only got 1 game last year, but played a few in 23. Ryan Sutton, I think he's on the move. Was that Liam Knight? I can't remember. But no, I think there's a few in front of Sutto. Blake Steep was a pretty good looking option. There is a forward spot at the Roosters, so I might just plug him in. Zion Mayu, I think he looked alright in the brief bit he got, but there's a few in front of him at the Warriors. Katoga's gone to the Eels, so that one probably needs a change. Geimer, if he can get a start, he looked pretty good in his 2 games. So we'll plug him in. And again, we'll see if we can fit another premium in. Front row, there's usually not a lot available, but Vaialepu's cheap. They do have Stefano there now though, but he did well last year, I thought. So let's just put him in for the time being. VAR, they're talking about could be a bolter for the Roosters. Spot Takura, looks alright based on average in his last few games. I feel like there should be more, but that's alright. We'll plug him in anyway. See if we can find some sort of value potentially. There's been a lot of movement. Maybe Royce Hunt going to the Tigers could find some more minutes. Um, but yeah, I guess all the movement in terms of front row's been at the top end, and basically all the teams are just shuffled around. Like Fisher Harris going to the Warriors just fills the gap from Fanua Blake, who's gone to the Sharks, um, which fills the gap that Royce Hunt going to the Tigers, that sort of thing. So yeah, nothing really jumps out. So this could potentially be another strategy. We talk about having 17 playing options. If you're happy with these 17, you might just go with, a few plotters in the front row. And, if they're all just coming off the bench making 10, 15 points, that will probably drop off every week anyway. So we'll do it like that for the time being. So at hooker, we're looking for a cheap option. Um, so yeah, probably these guys are a bit down the list. Um, Matt Arthur, there's been a bit of chat about. Could sort of get some more game time. Obviously, Jaden Brayley would be the starter, but if he can establish himself on the bench, could be a bit of a slow burn option. And Brayley hasn't had the best run of injuries. Um, but I guess the obvious one that I've completely ignored is Mamazoulis taking the starting gig there at South. So I think he's the obvious cheapie. If you want to go double cheapie, like I said, if Matt Arthur did get up and you've got Sandon Smith in your halves, or if you do want to go like a double premium in the halfback, so you just want to start with Cleary, Hughes, set and forget, for example. Not the worst move, by the way. It might even happen. How we going? We've got heaps of money left. So, could be an option to go double cheap at the hooker and, load up there. But we've pretty much got everything covered. We've got 1.8 mil, so one more premium second row, centre wing, and then we'll spend the rest of the cash. Um, Alright, so premium second rower. Who do we want? Again, this will probably change. I haven't looked at the draw too closely, anything like that at the moment. But let's go Eli Katoa. Centre wing. So I guess, Val Holmes and Zach Lomax are the top two for good reason. Probably just given the. Actually, it's a tough one because I guess with Holmes, they are losing a bit of experience in the halves with Hunt going, bit of direction, but it sounds like what's his name? Ilias from has gone over from the Rabbitohs. He's just going to slot straight in. Don't know if he's too similar to Kyle Flanagan in play style for that to really work, but I'm sure Shano will work it out. Zach Lomax, I guess there's a lot of excitement around Parramatta with Jason Riles going there. And I guess, as well, they talk about him going to the centres. I don't know if that actually helps his Supercoach output. Um, he might sort of feel like he's more involved, but it'll be more try assists than actual tries scored, perhaps. Um, yeah, probably looking at either Ty or Garrick, and it's not very often I do start with him, so I'm going to start with Ty. Treat myself, it could potentially change. There could be some more value. I haven't dug into this at all. Things like, I guess, if Hopewadi does get the start at fullback, I've heard rumours about them trying to transition Tommy Turbo in towards 5/8 for when DCE retires. Um, in that unlikely scenario, Hopewadi would be the gun, I suppose, in that area. Bradman Best had an injury affected season. He could be a nice pod. The Fox at Parramatta. Actually, I guess the one that I would be interested in seeing his price. I said I might talk about it before, but Blake Wilson. So there's him, Marcelo Montoya, and Inari Tuala fighting for a spot. And it might just be that I watched more Bulldogs games than those other teams last year, but I really liked the way Blake Wilson went about it. So it could be a bit of Bulldog bias, but honestly, I don't care. Blake Wilson could potentially come into the team. So what's that leave us? Was that 600k? So I guess looking at the team, if we quickly just put it together, like get Katoa on field, Wilson would start. Guess yeah, Billy Smith would just go by the money for the time being. So you'd have Turbo as a reserve, Metcalf, Smith. So basically the spine on the bench. So I guess the obvious place is to try and maybe get another front rower. But then the other option is shifting Smith down and, loading up on halfback potentially. This isn't. So I guess if Townsend, well, he's never really been SuperCoach relevant. I was going to say if he starts, then could slot him in. Katoa's probably improving year on year. He's one you could go at a bit cheaper. Lewis Dodd's an interesting one. I don't know. I'd imagine he'd be very similar to Ilias in that, just more of a distributing, organising halfback. But I guess he has got the starting gig there at South. Alright. We might be able to do both if we do make the Smith move. So Sandon Smith, find him. So I think in terms of number one and far and away is Cleary. Number two, I guess, based, last year's average, Jerome Hughes is a viable option, particularly will cover through Origin. But you could say the same thing for Dylan Brown, who also has that little bit of versatility, which is handy. Mitchell Moses didn't get a lot of game time last year, so he's usually that sort of third tier halfback alongside a DCE type. If Jake Clifford's kicking goals, could be an interesting option. And then we're getting into the cheapies there anyway. Let's just go Jerome Hughes because we'll see what money we've got to play with. I'll lock him in as a reserve. So it gives us another 377, which gets us a pretty decent second front row. It could be a Terrell May. Fisher Harris going back to New Zealand. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. Joshy Curran did well last year. Liam Henry, be interesting to see if he can get more consistent game time with the hole that Fisher Harris has left behind. With Waria Hargraves finishing up too, maybe like a Lindsay Collins or a Spencer Lenier. I know he was hyped up last year, but there's a few minutes on offer there. This is why we're talking about Avata being in the mix. Does Leota take the next step up as that front row leader? I'm getting very cheap at this point, but that's all right. So I guess if we're going for upside, we'll go Terrell May. So let's swap them around just for the pricing. So pretty close to starting team there. Hang on. Blake Wilson on field. So if we save the team and just have a bit of a look, so just I sort of have stumbled across it, but I do like this sort of structure. You know, the two cheap hookers, I think there could be two or three options. Obviously, like I said, if Smith drops it out, Matt Arthur doesn't get the start, you may want to go one expensive, one cheapie. In which case, like I said, you could potentially take it out of your your front row, and just bank the other 17, including your flex. Um, so I guess if we look at it that way, like essentially we're going two premium in the front row, so front row slash hooker, so the traditional front row, two second rowers, and a few cheapies depending on team lists. You could potentially chop one of the premiums into a couple of mid prices, which we'll do some more analysis on over the preseason. Gone pretty big in the halves. Even Metcalf isn't an out and out cheapie, but there is room to finesse these options. Don't know if I like having Hughes and Munster together. I think, a reason why Hughes did so well last year was Munster. In fact, I might just make the change. I'm going to go Dylan Brown, you know, back in what they're doing with Rosie at Parramatta. So, yeah, and that gives us a bit more flexibility too. So we've got 166. Metcalf could easily become, well, yeah, he could become a Luai, Cody Walker even. So, I mean, if you said to someone a couple of years ago you could start with Cleary, Brown, Munster, Cody Walker, two gun fullbacks, they'd be like, you're kidding yourself. So, I don't know, I like the pricing, the way it's fallen. It's worked out well. Um, but yeah, I'm a bit of a Metcalf fan, so we'll lock him in. So I got one premium, couple of mid prices, and four cheapies in the centre wing. Um, generally this is what happens every year. Is I seem to scrimp and save in the centre wing, then you struggle to get to these big guns. But I think for the balance of the 17 at the moment, that would be the best way to go. Like a Smith or a McLean could potentially go off on any given week. That's why you have the centre wing cheapies, is they have that quick cash gen. Two gun fullbacks, which is nice, and probably even if we needed to with that cash, there's room to go to Desco, so that's handy. And then using the flex at the moment for that, I guess that key fullback cheapie option, basically allowing us to still run two premium fullbacks. So that's the initial team picker. Um, didn't go through all the prices and stuff. As I said, might do some more research around the mid prices. Likes of Sua, Failonga, if he can get a start, we like him. Won't go through all of them necessarily. But yeah, we'll leave it at that. So if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to get them in. Give us a like if you're, glad that NRL SuperCoach is back. Give us a subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.